On paper, Summer Interlude doesn't seem like much of a shift for Ingmar Bergman. Once again, the Swedish filmmaker is exploring young love, coming of age, and the specific hardships faced by women in patriarchal societies. These are all themes Bergman had previously explored on film, but Summer Interlude nonetheless marks a major moment of growth in Bergman's cinema. A moment where Bergman achieved a greater emotional poignancy than ever before. The key is atmosphere, and how Bergman expresses it through imagery and time. While previous Bergman films were certainly emotionally intense, most of this emotion stemmed from the narrative and characters rather than the imagery. But with Summer Interlude, Bergman makes a clean break from the start, opening on a dance rehearsal before we know much about our protagonist or what the story is going to be. Nonetheless, Bergman plunges us into the dance, a series of finely choreographed moves set against a stark background of white, the performance taking on an otherworldly, abstract tone. This luminous performance is suddenly cast into darkness, and the stage director's voice shatters the wondrous fantasy. Before knowing much of anything in terms of character or plot, Bergman has established an emotional atmosphere of beauty, which gives way to a more sobering reality. The rest of Summer Interlude is littered with little atmospheric flourishes, ranging from natural imagery to a positively delightful animated sequence as lovers Marie and Henrik share a moment. But for me, the most affecting scene occurs when Marie returns to the island of her summer romance. For almost 2 minutes, we simply follow Marie as she wanders the island without music or dialogue. All we hear is the soft howl of brisk wind and the distant sounds of birds. An encounter with a woman in black has a certain ominous quality, but not much actually happens here in terms of plot or character development. And yet, this short sequence is one of the film's most powerful, haunting, and strangely beautiful. It's pure atmosphere, not only because of the strength of the imagery, but how long Bergman is willing to linger on it. The significance of this atmosphere goes beyond a matter of aesthetics. It isn't just that Summer Interlude has more iconic and striking imagery than the films which preceded it, but that such iconography served to deepen the emotional power of Bergman's story. As I said from the start, narratively, Summer Interlude isn't doing much that Bergman hadn't already done prior, and yet the overriding emotional affect is so much more profound. In investing so much time and effort to simply setting the atmosphere, Bergman invites us to identify with the story and characters on a more emotional level, and that in turn makes the ebb and flow of their lives all the more engrossing. Now you may be thinking, okay, but previous Bergman films also had dialogueless scenes, and didn't you make a whole video on what Gunnar Fischer's cinematography added to Bergman's cinema? And yeah, earlier Bergman films had their share of powerful imagery, but such moments were always at the service of plot, and could be boiled down to simple, utilitarian focus. This silent close-up of Josta shows his feelings of anger and betrayal reacting to Berit. The sequence of Ruth almost leaving her husband sets up the discontent of their marriage. This exchange of glances introduces Stig's infidelity. I suppose you could break down the two scenes I've highlighted from Summer Interlude in a similar way, with the haunting atmosphere of each alluding to the tragedy in Marie's past. But these readings are only possible in hindsight, with the context of the whole story. Within the moments themselves, Bergman privileges feeling over plot. In case it isn't clear, Summer Interlude is my favorite of all the Bergman films we've covered so far. But more importantly, it's also a major artistic breakthrough for Ingmar Bergman. This is the film where Bergman transitioned from talented young filmmaker to cinematic poet.